By the time we had finished breakfast, all vestige of the storm had passed, so we broke camp and started out with the bandits and their horses to break trail, leaving the others to follow with the camp equipment. Although the bandits' camp was not over 12 miles down the river, we did not reach there until midday, when we were only too pleased to stop for a little rest. We found the camp very comfortable, with ample room to accommodate all our party. After lunch it was decided that we could make better headway if we waited a day or two to allow the new snow that had fallen to settle, as we would be obliged to cross a divide of about 14,000 feet elevation the next day. The weather did not prove to be as warm as was expected, so our stay was prolonged to 4 days. The whole village treated us with the greatest respect and did everything in their power to make our stay comfortable. When we were leaving, 2 of the men asked if they could join our party. As we were expecting to recruit a number of helpers in the next large village, about 70 miles farther on, we gladly accepted them, and they were with us until we returned that fall. When we left the village, nearly 1/2 of the population accompanied us to the summit of the high divide in order to assist in breaking trail through the deep snow, and we were very thankful for their kindly efforts, as it proved a very difficult ascent. At the summit we bade farewell to our bandit friends, and went on to the appointed meeting place, arriving there May the 28th, 3 days after the arrival of the friends we had made the appointment with the fall before. Next chapter. After resting for a week and reassembling our outfit, the combined expedition set out for the ancient city of the Uyghurs, where we arrived June the 30th. Here we set to work immediately, and when the first pit was down to a depth of 50 feet, we encountered the walls of an ancient building. When we had proceeded to a depth of a little more than 90 feet, we broke into a large room, where there were a number of gold, silver, bronze, and clay statues, all beautifully wrought. After the work had progressed far enough to prove beyond a question of doubt that this had been a very large city, we went on to the second location. Here we went down about 40 feet before we came upon anything that could be called definite proof of a former civilization. Again, we did enough work to prove that we were in the ruins of a large ancient city. We removed to a third location, where we expected to find evidence that would prove this the oldest and largest of the 3 cities. In order to conserve time and resources, we had organized our forces into 4 parties. 3 of these parties were made up of a leader and 6 assistants. This gave 7 men to each party. To this combined force we were assigned all the excavation work and its management, each party being assigned 8 hours out of the 24. The fourth party, consisting of the remainder of the personnel of the expedition, was assigned the duties of the camp. I was in the party of which our chief was the leader. We were assigned the 8 hours from midnight until 8 in the morning. After we had completed the discovery of the first pit and had gained access to 4 of the underground chambers or rooms, we cleared away enough of the debris to show beyond a question of a doubt that this was the oldest and largest city of the 3, and that it was rich in treasure. One morning the party which relieved our chief's party reported that there were horsemen approaching our camp from the north. When we reached the surface we found they were headed in our direction, and it looked as though they were another bandit band, since they were evidently following the trail we had made on our way here. As we stood looking, Jas came up and said, "They are a party of bandits who are determined to loot the camp, but I do not think we need fear." We waited for them to approach, and they came on within 500 yards of our camp, then halted. After a short interval, 2 of the men rode up, and after exchanging greetings, asked what we were doing there. They were told we were attempting to find a ruined city. To this they replied they did not believe a word of what we said. They suspected we were looking for gold, and they had come to take our equipment and supplies from us. We asked if they were government soldiers, to which they replied they did not recognize any government, as the strongest party was the one that won in that country. As they saw no evidence of firearms, I believe they came to the conclusion that there must be a larger force than was evidenced by what they could see. They returned to their band to talk over the situation. After a time the 2 came back and told us that if we submitted peacefully, They would not harm any of us, but if we did not, they would advance and shoot everyone who showed resistance. We were given 10 minutes to decide, and after that time they would advance without further preliminaries. To this Jas replied that we would neither resist nor surrender. This seemed to anger them, and wheeling their horses, they started back toward the band, waving their arms. Then the whole band came toward us at a full gallop. I confess that I was badly frightened, but almost instantly we seemed to be surrounded by a number of shadowy forms on horseback, galloping around us. Then these forms became more lifelike and increased in numbers. Evidently our visitors had seen what we were witnessing, for their horses were either reined in quickly or stopped of their own accord as they began to rear and plunge and get beyond control of their riders. In a moment there was wild confusion among the band, which numbered about 75 horsemen. The horses began plunging right and left, beyond all control of the riders, and this ended up in a wild retreat, with our phantom horsemen, as we called them, in close pursuit. After the excitement was over, our chief and 2 of the party, including myself, walked out to where the main band had halted and could find no tracks except those made by the robbers themselves. We were very much mystified at this, since the relief had looked as real to us as did the bandits, and the rescuers had seemed to have come from all sides. We fully expected to find the tracks of their horses in the sand, as well as the tracks of the horses the bandits were riding. When we returned, Jas said, "The phantom horsemen, as you call them, were only pictures, made so real that you, as well as the bandits, could see them. In a word, they were the pictures of other occurrences that we were able to produce in so lifelike a manner that they could not be distinguished from the real occurrence. We are able to produce them for our own protection, as well as for that of others, and no one had been harmed. Where a definite purpose is served, there is no harm in the outcome." A doubt had arisen in the minds of the bandits. It was not logical that an expedition like this would venture so far away without some protection, and we were able to take advantage of this to frighten them. They are very superstitious, and always on the lookout for trickery. That type is the most susceptible to fear, and they saw just what they expected to find. If we had not used this method, we should, in all probability, have been obliged to destroy a number of the band before they would have left us in peace. As it is, we shall hear no more of them. We were not molested again. After we accomplished sufficient work to convince us that these 3 cities existed, it was suggested that we should fill all the pits in order to protect them from any roving band that might discover the work, as such a discovery would lead to wholesale plundering for the treasure alone. There are legends among nearly all of these bands that these great cities exist, and that they contain hoards of gold. As we finished work, each pit was filled, so as to leave as little trace as possible, and the first storm would remove any trace which we had left. The sand is continually shifting in this country, and this alone makes it very difficult to locate any of these ruins. It would have been impossible for us to discover any of the locations without the assistance of our friends. We were told that similar ruins extend well into southern Siberia. There is unmistakable evidence that a vast population had flourished here, and that they had reached a high state of civilization. There is also unlimited proof that these people understood agriculture, mining, textiles, and their allied industries, reading, writing, and all the sciences. It is very evident that the history of these people is a history of the Aryan race. While seated at the table the afternoon of our last day, one of the party asked Emil whether the history of this great race could be traced and written. He answered that it could, that the city beneath the site of our camp contained the absolute proof in written records, which, when found and translated, would give a concurrent and direct history of this people. Here the conversation was interrupted by a man appearing at the door of the tent and asking if he could come in. Emil Jast and Chandler Sen arose and hurried to the entrance to meet him.